Welcome to Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio coverage of bbcon 2012. My guests now are Karen Hartt. She's the Philanthropic Services Specialist at Maine Community Foundation, and Nicole San Miguel, Database Administrator at the Enoch Pratt Free Library of Baltimore City. Their topic is the Razor's Edge Policy and Procedure Manual. Ladies, welcome.
Thank you.
Karen, why don't you explain what you do as a Philanthropic Services Specialist at the Maine Community Foundation?
Do you want the whole list?
No, I just want you to say it in about 30 seconds.
I am the database manager. I am the charitable gift annuity specialist. I write all those contracts. And I also do the research for the Razor's Edge.
Okay, and Nicole, as database administrator, what are you doing?
I do everything. I process gifts, I generate letters, I put information in and pull it back out of the database.
Okay, everything in and out of data.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's just start with what Nicole, what you see some charities doing wrong around their procedures around Razor's Edge. What is it we're trying to improve on?
They don't have them. I think that's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah,
Yep.
Karen is nodding.
Yep, definitely. Not having procedures and data standards on how to put the data in to get the data back out again.
Okay, well, let's just keep it simple and start. Karen, why don't you give us a first good practice that belongs in your manual should be written, I presume, right?
The first thing you need to do is understand how the data is in the system, and then you need to figure out how you want your data in the system, because it can be the way Razor's Edge trains you to do it, or it could be how your finance people tell you they want it. But for us, the biggest thing was putting the data in a standard format every single time. So my procedure manual starts with constituent entry, and it works off of the address standards that the United States Post Office puts out, and that's how we enter data based on the address standards.
Now, do you both have multiple people entering data in your offices?
Yes,
both do.
Karen is a much bigger office than mine. I'm an office of 5 people, and we all have to enter data.
And we have 25 employees in 6 different sites. We have remote users, and we also have a secondary office down in the southern part of the state of Maine. So everybody enters data. Not everybody has the capacity to do all the data entry, but everybody has the capacity to do constituent entry.
Okay, and let's have a little motivation step. What's the downfall, Karen? What's the problem if you don't have standard data entry?
Your reports are messed up, your mailing lists are messed up, and your executive director's on your back saying, why can't I send out 3,000 letters to 3,000 people at the correct address at this time?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
If you don't have standard data entry, you don't have standard data export.
You can't get it out.
So everything is all over the place.
It's not all called the same thing, so you can't do what should be a pretty simple query, I guess, in a lot of cases, to get out everything that you should get out.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you have 3,000 records, you could have the data in multiple ways. And so if you're doing a mailing and you have an address field that's the post office P.O. box listed above the street address, the post office is going to mail it to the street address. They're not going to mail it to the P.O. box. But the post office, the physical address doesn't have a receptacle, a mail box, and so they return the mail. And so that's not how the post office reads addresses. They read from the bottom up. So your post office box, which receives your mail, has to be the first address in the line going up. And then
above the city and state?
Yes, just above the city and state, and then your street address, so that the post office can deliver the mail where it needs to go. And if you don't know that address standard feature, and your data comes in from a cash certification and the post office box is listed first on the first address line, that's wrong, and it will get returned to you. So you've wasted your first class mail, all the time it took to process that mailing piece, and the time it takes to fix the record in Razor's Edge.
Right.
So data standards are efficiencies.
All right, so we need standards in inputting data, and then there has to be I guess, training. I mean, you said you have people in multiple sites, Karen. There has to be training around the policies.
Yep, and my policies and procedures manual is my training manual. I use my policies and procedures manual to train all my new staff and to do my continuing updating trainings that I run biannually.
Nicole, is the manual changing?
It's constantly changing.
Why, yeah, okay.
Well, I think you kind of have to look at it as a document that's never actually complete, because Blackbaud is constantly updating its products. People are constantly changing address. You're constantly being hit with different situations or events, and you just kind of have to be able to adapt. It's kind of like the Constitution.
Okay, it's adaptive, right. All right. Nicole, what's another important element of the Policy and Procedures Manual?
I would say an index, a table of contents or an index, because Karen, for instance, has a very large policies and procedures manual. And
how many pages, Karen?
It's 150 separate documents, totaling almost 350 pages.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
I thought this was going to be 5 or 6 pages.
No, I've been the DBA for 15 years, and
Okay.
I have a very established policies and procedures manual.
All right. Now,
mine's not nearly that long, but still, even in just 100 pages, your users have to be able to find what they need in those 100 pages.
Okay.
And if your policy and procedure manual is only 5 pages, it's not nearly long enough.
All right. Well, that's why I'm a neophyte, and you're DBAs. And by the way, when Karen says DBA, I want to keep her out of jargon jail. We have jargon jail on the show. I learned right before the session, a DBA, of course, is a database administrator, not a doing business as.
Right.
Okay. An index and a table of contents, right. It's got to be searchable. You got to be able to find it. I assume this is all in electronic form, especially 350 pages or so.
Yeah.
Okay, searchable.
It's not.
Obviously.
It is not in a print format. In fact, everybody. I get a lot of questions from Blackbaud users to have access to my manual, and they want me to send it electronically, and I explain to them very succinctly that it is 150 documents totaling 350 pages, and I will be happy to send you zip files of portions of the manual, but it is more than 25 megabytes in size, and my email server does not allow me to send it, and I'm not going to upload it on Google Docs. So I have specific pieces that are categorized by my index for, I would say, structure. It's an introduction, the constituent entry, and then it goes through for other Blackbaud parts of the system, and I'll send them the basic constituent entry procedures, and along with my tips and tricks, and so that's a zip file, and I'll send that to them. Okay. Or I have 5, 6 different procedures, zipped files uploaded on Blackbaud's website in their shared client document folder, and people can go access it that way.
Okay.
And you also have a document that, as we said a minute ago, is kind of constantly changing and constantly being updated. So a paper document isn't necessarily the best format for your users. If you make a change, you don't want to have to reprint that, be it 100 pages or 350 pages. And I also like it to be somewhere that my users don't have to look through their desk, through their cabinets, through their drawers, through their filing cabinet to find their copy of it. I like them to be able to open up a file on their server very quickly and go right to it. It's also a lot more searchable electronically.
Yes, and where I have
Control F.
I have 6 different sites that use my procedures manual. They have to be able to have access to it, and so they have access electronically, so they don't have to print it off.
Okay, let's move on. I'll just keep it general, and Karen, why don't you throw out another practice that belongs in the procedures manual we're talking about?
Campaigns, funds, and appeals, and how Razor's Edge has campaigns, funds, and appeals. That's the structure for sending out solicitations and what funds are associated with that solicitation, regardless of whether you're using a named fund. We have 1,700 named funds at the Maine Community Foundation because that's what we do.
Okay.
And another organization might only have 3 or 4 different funds, which are like restricted, non-restricted, general, or whatever. And so your campaigns, funds, and appeals need to have the same naming process and the same structure so that you can find information and report on information in the same format in the same way, and you get the results that you're expecting. So,
and should that naming be is that particular to the organization, or can you share what some of the ideas, what your ideas are around these naming conventions?
Well, how we think of campaigns, funds, and appeals, campaign is the umbrella that the appeal falls under, and then the fund is under the appeal. So we can have an appeal that has 3 or 4 different funds that we're raising money for,
yes. And
that naming structure is always the year, the appeal, that's the appeal name, and then the campaign is a general name, We reuse those year after year after year, because we don't do capital campaigns. We don't raise funds for ourselves. We give money away, so we raise money to give away.
So an example of a campaign would be end of year?
A county fund would be a great capital campaign. The capital campaign is county fund. There are 11 different appeals underneath that, because we have an appeal for each of the funds that's associated with the campaign appeal.
Right.
And then those appeals are done every year, so the appeal is renamed every year. The old appeal gets inactivated, and the new appeal comes on, and that's how we do our solicitations and our appeals.
How about you, Nicole? Is something similar or different? Around campaigns, funds, and appeals?
Our campaigns, funds, and appeals are a little different because Karen raises money for other organizations, basically. Or not raises money for other organizations, but the money that she uses goes to other organizations. Our money stays in our organization. And we, as a public library with 23 different branches, constantly have campaigns going on, capital campaigns. We also have an annual campaign, and then we also have campaigns that may be related to special projects. But just like Karen and I are different, every other organization is going to be different.
Yep.
Everybody does something very specific and can tailor Razor's Edge to their specific needs.
Okay.
That's the beauty and the curse of Razor's Edge, is the flexibility of the system.
All right. So Karen, it doesn't have to be the hierarchy that you described in thinking about campaigns, funds, and appeals.
No, there are lots of organizations that I help structure their systems that they don't even use a campaign. They use everything on the appeal level or everything just on the fund level. So it's how your system needs to be set up, but what you have to do is think about how that process is going to be best for you to get the data back out of the system and what works best to get the data out. And then you structure your system based on that, and then you write your policies and procedures so that you have a constant naming structure and a constant format and flow of your data in and out.
It sounds like you should be thinking about what you want to get out of Razor's Edge before you just start.
Exactly. Almost work backwards.
You think about what you need and what report somebody might need to. It actually dictates how the data goes in the system on our standpoint. I converted the database in 1999, took over, and so it's my baby, and I helped design how the data is in the system. But I met with all of my officers and said, what do you need for reports? And that dictated how we put the data in the system. And so I wrote my policies and procedures basically to make sure that format doesn't get lost, and for those annual things that you don't do all the time, so I can refer back to them, because my memory is like a sieve sometimes. And also so that if I was to leave the foundation, they aren't hamstrung by not knowing what I did and why I did it. Okay. And so they could use that as a training tool or as a fallback to see how I record a campaign or how I record a pledge or how I record a gift.
Yeah, that's also very important, knowing the reasons why things are in there a certain way. I can't tell you how often I pull up data in our older data in our database, and we do not know why it has been entered that way, what the rationalization for this particular type of coding was, or even just what certain abbreviations stand for.
Oh my!
So I mean, definitions in your policy and procedures manual, and also I mean, you don't have to justify every single thing that you do, but perhaps a little bit of insight into why those decisions were made is useful, especially looking back. And when staff changes.
Okay, go ahead, Karen.
And if we're going to change something in the database, we talk about it as a staff and what the implications of that change could be future and historic. And it also, we're tracking a lot of data that was in hard copy before is now in the database. For a good example is successor advisors. So we have a specific way that we code our successor advisors who are advisors to an advised fund after the donor advisor is no longer available to advise.
To the donor.
Right,
okay.
And so that we have that policy that the information is recorded in Razor's Edge. It's in a specific format, and so when we know that somebody's passed away, we can go into the Razor's Edge database and say, oh yeah, this is how we're supposed to be doing it.
Okay.
So it's a really good way to track for historic data as well as future data, because you might have somebody who's in the position now, but in 15 years they may not be there, and you might have somebody who's passed away and it's a huge bequest, and if there's no documentation on how that bequest is supposed to be processed in the system, then it's it may not be processed how it was intended to be processed.
Okay. Nicole, what else should be in this table of contents that you said is itself important to the document? What else belongs here?
Well, I think you just need to have some basic day-to-day operating procedures.
Such as?
Such as gift processing. What happens when a gift comes in? What reports need to be submitted to your business office? What are they saved as? How do you change parameters? What gift types belong in this report and what gift types don't? Who do you hard credit for something? Who do you soft credit for something? How do you split gifts? Do you split gifts? Everybody does a lot of these things differently, and we have staff turnover all the time, and I could go from where I work to where Karen works and not do anything right.
And it would be different.
Yeah.
We don't record pledges unless they're material to our financial statements. So if it's not a material pledge, let's say somebody is doing a fundraiser and they're going to raise $50,000, and there are pledges and they want us to record pledges for that. That's not material, so it doesn't go through to our finance department. We put it in as a placeholder in the Raiser's Edge, but then we also have a fundraiser where it's $4.5 million. That is a material dollar amount. We do record those pledges. They have assigned documentation. They are what we call collectible pledges. And so Nicole might have pledges that she runs all the time for her campaigns, and we don't. We do one massive pledge maybe once every 10 years. And the rest of the pledges aren't booked because they're not material to our bottom line.
And we do pledges all the time. We have pledges that may last a year. We have pledges that may last 10 years. We have, all kinds of pledges. And it's just the difference in the nature of the way our two organizations work, or the difference in the nature of the way all of our organizations work.
Okay.
Yeah, not every nonprofit works the same way.
Of course. We're going to start to wrap up. Karen, why don't you share what it is you love about being a DBA, database administrator? Why do you love it?
I never do the same thing in the same day twice. I do a lot of different things every single day, even though it's the same basic format. I do gift entry, and I do other stock gifts. So I do stock gift entry, I do charitable gift annuity entry, I work with charitable remainder trusts, I work with prospect management, I work with bringing in new funds. I open my own funds. I do data services. So I never do the same thing every single day, any day. So I love the challenge of it, the puzzle of it, how to figure out getting the data in there so it comes out the way my people need it. And I love the software, so it just makes my life so much easier doing what I do.
Okay. How about you, Nicole?
I like that, I don't like that I've spent a lot of time cleaning up a database, but I have spent a lot of time cleaning up a database.
That product is gratifying.
And it's gratifying, and now everyone in my office can pull information and is actually so excited about what they pull out. It's really amazing. You can go from hardly being able to see any kind of analytical data in your database to being able to pull this stuff out and just infinitely file down your donors and their giving histories and their giving trends and what they respond to and what they don't, and at the end of the day, save money and raise more money because your data is so much better.
Okay,
Nicole had a fabulous slide yesterday where it was a period of darkness where the data was messed up and you couldn't get anything, and then when the data was clean, it was like having a light bulb and you could actually find the filing. So it was a fabulous graphic, and it works really well. It's a great analogy.
That was Karen Hartt, and she's the philanthropic services specialist at the Maine Community Foundation. And also with us was Nicole San Miguel, database administrator for the Enoch Pratt Free Library of Baltimore City. Ladies, welcome. I'm sorry. Thank you very much, and welcome. Thank you very much for being guests.
Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome.
It was a lot of fun.
It's Tony Martignetti, nonprofit radio coverage of bbcon 2012. If it sounds quiet in the background, it is. We're the last vestiges of bbcon 2012 today. It continues. And thank you very much for being with us.